Saturday morning, March 14th, 2026. Buddha Dhamma, part 2 of chapter 18.3, Samma Sati, Right Mindfulness, from page 1743 to page 1764, compiled by Somdet Pra Buddha Gosa Charya, English name P.A. Payuto. In part 2 of 18.3, Right Mindfulness, we are going to cover the remainder of the foundation of mindfulness from a viewpoint. The four foundation of mindfulness, the way of practice, the fruits of mindfulness practice. Momentary awareness is essential for vipassana meditation technique or insight meditation. And finally, the foundation of mindfulness nourishes the bojana, enlightenment factors. Chapter 18.3, part 2, on the middle of page 1743, the gist of the foundation of mindfulness. One may see the description above of the practice of the four foundation of mindfulness, satipatthana. This includes the practice of insight, vipassana. It does not require a withdrawal from society into seclusion or a fixed time schedule. The Buddha's teaching therefore encourages practice and integration into daily life. In essence, the teachings of the four foundation of mindfulness, satipatthana, describes 4 areas in our lives which requires the guidance and supervision by remaining mindful. Mindfulness, sati. First, the body and physical behavior. Second, various sensation of pleasures and pain. Third, various states of mind. Fourth, thoughts and reflection. Sustaining mindfulness at these 4 points helps to ensure a life free from danger and suffering. And such a practice culminates in the realization of the ultimate truth. It is evident from the outline from the 4 foundation of mindfulness above that in practice, mindfulness is never applied on its own, but always in conjunction with other spiritual factors. One such factor, which is not specifically mentioned in the standard sutra from the Tipitaka, definition of sati is samadhi, concentration, which must be present at all times, either at least in a weak form, sufficient for the task at hand. The factors which are specifically and regularly mentioned include atapi, meaning ardor, effort. This refers to right efforts, samma vayama, the 6 factors of the Eightfold Path, which entails guarding against and abandoning what is unwholesome, and cultivating and protecting what is truly wholesome. Sampajano, meaning clear comprehension, full awareness. Sammapajana, this refers to wisdom, panya. And then we have satima, the possession of sati, mindfulness. This refers to the very factor and the foundations of mindfulness. In the scriptures of the Tipitaka, the term sampajana usually appears coupled with the term sati, as this term sampajana refers to wisdom. Training in mindfulness is thus one part of wisdom development. Clear comprehensions and a clear and penetrative understanding of those things or activities focused on by mindfulness. One understands their nature and their purpose. One knows how to relate to them, free from delusion and misunderstandings. The subsequent phrase, free from the covetousness and grief for the world, under the definition of right mindfulness, demonstrates the attitude resulting from having mindfulness and clear comprehension. A person is equanimous and independent, unbounded by defilements, neither swayed by attachment nor by aversion. In the ending, refrain the clause, he contemplates ordination and cessation. Points to the understanding of things in light of the three characteristics, titlakkhana, which are anattata, dukkhattata, and aniccatta, giving rise to the perception and experience of things as they actually exist. The phrase, he establishes mindfulness in front of him, there is a body, for example, refers to the awareness of the body in its actuality, without clothing it in assumptions and cherished beliefs, without identifying or labeling it as a person, as a self, as him, her, me, or mine. This attitude is one of freedom and independence, and that is not reliant on external conditions. It is free from attachments by way of tanha, craving, and upatana, grasping. In this context, let us examine the meaning of some important Pali language terms. Kaye kaya nupasi, contemplating the body in the body. This is the standard. Literal translations, which can be easily give rise to misunderstanding. One can sympathize with the translator here because it is sometimes extremely difficult to convey a clear and concise meaning of some Pali language terms and phrases. This phrase refers to actually discerning at all times the body simply as the body and nothing more than collection and assembly of various organs and component parts. One does not see the body as being identified or classified as him, her, me, John, Susan, Timothy, etc., nor does one see it as belonging to anyone, say mine or his. When looking at the hair or face, one sees those for what they are, not a man or a woman. In other words, one's directly in line with the truth, corresponding with actual states of the body. When one sees corresponds to what one is looking at, that is, one looks at the body and sees the body, rather than looking at the body and seeing Mr. Smith, Mr. James, Mr. John, or someone loathsome or someone attractive. This is consistent with the saying of the old masters. One looks but does not see. One visions is distorted and one sees otherwise. Not seeing, one is deluded. Deluded, one cannot escape. Atapi sampajano satima, ardent, fully aware, and mindful. This refers to right effort, samavayama, right view, samatiti, and right mindfulness, samasati, the three consistent factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, which must always be applied in conjunction with the development of every aspect of the path. First, the effort energizes the mind. It prevents the mind from becoming discouraged or depressed, from wavering, flagging, or retreating. It gives no opportunity for unwholesome mind states to arise. It is the force urging the mind to press on. It fosters growth of wholesome qualities. Second, clear comprehension is equivalent to wisdom, which penetrates the true nature of those objects focused upon by mindfulness. And it prevents delusion from arising in regard to them. And third, mindfulness is the fixing and holding of attention on an object, each moment preventing forgetfulness and preventing confusion. Vinaya loki apacha domanasam, free from covetousness and grief in the world. This phrase refers to freedom from desire and aversion, likes and dislikes. By practicing this way, the mind is spacious and bright. Neither attachment nor aversions can overwhelm the mind. Ati kayoti wa panasa sati pachu patita hoti yawa dewa na mataya pati sati mataya. He establishes mindfulness in front of him. There is a body to the extent necessary for the knowledge and recollection. A mindful person knows clearly and accurately what the body is, merely the body. One does not mistake it for a being, a person, a man, or a woman, or identifying as the self, or mine, or yours. The purpose of this reflection is for the sake of knowledge and recollection, for the development of sati, mindfulness, clear comprehensions, and wisdom, and to ward against fanciful proliferations. The same reflection applies to feeling, vedana, the mind and mind objects. Anisito cha viharati, he dwells independently. This refers to the mind that is free, not tied to any condition. One needs not entrust oneself in anything or anything else. Technically speaking, one does not take refuge in or rely on craving and views. Cognizing something, one experiences it directly, according to how it actually is. One does not resort to craving and views in order to color or embellish the experience, to lull oneself into forgetfulness, or to dictate one's thoughts, reflections, and general well-being. Nacha kinse loki upatiyati. He does not cling to anything in the world. One does not grasp at or attach at anything at all, whether form, feeling, perception, volition of formations, or consciousness, or being self, or belonging to the self. Achatamba, baritamba, either internally or externally. Some scholars have deferred in their explanation of this phrase, but the consensus of the commentators is that internal refers to oneself and the external refers to others. Such an interpretation corresponds with the Atidhamma text from the Tipitaka, which elucidate the meaning of these terms. How does a monk see the mind and the mind externally? Here, when another person's mind is lustful, he clearly perceives that it is so. Some people may question whether it is appropriate to interlude and probe into someone else's mind, whether this is even possible. A brief answer to this question is that Gautama Buddha encouraged us to apply mindfulness to all things that we encounter and to simply see things as they actually are. In daily life, we must interact with other people. We should do so mindfully. We should be aware of people as they are, as they clearly manifest to us in our direct personal experience. If one possesses the ability to read another person's mind, one knows directly according to its ability. If one does not have this power, then one need not be inquisitive. This way, one will not obsess over other people and give rise to such unwholesome qualities as lust and aversion. There is no obligation to monitor or pry into the affair of others. If, however, while, say, speaking to someone else or showing signs of anger, or one is unaware of this or her emotional state, how can one claim to be practicing the foundation of mindfulness and applying them in daily life? To summarize the development of satipatthana, the fourth foundation of mindfulness, entails living with sati, mindfulness, clear comprehension, sampajana, and prevents any fixed perceptions of self generated by ignorance, avidya, to interfere with one's thoughts and to cause problems. Some Western scholars have compared the practice of the four foundation of mindfulness with contemporary methods of psychotherapy, and have come to the conclusion that the former provides better results and greater benefits because everyone is able to apply this practice by himself and can do so in everyday circumstances in order to maintain a healthy state of mind. Here, let's return to the summary of the four foundation of mindfulness, yet this time by using the contemporary mode of analysis. The four foundation of mindfulness, the way to practice. The constituent factors in the practice of four foundation of mindfulness are twofold. The passive, that which are focused on, observed, and discerned. The active, the act of observing, paying attention, and insight. The passive constitutes are those ordinary, mundane things common to all of us. The body and its movements, thoughts, feelings, etc., which exist and manifest in the present moment of awareness. The active constitutes are mindfulness and clear comprehension, which are the principal factors in the practice of the four foundation of mindfulness. These two agents focus us on and observe things, those present in the mind, unfalteringly and free from distraction. Mindfulness, that which keeps hold of the chosen object, clear comprehension, is the wisdom of faculty which clearly discerns the nature and the purpose of the objects under investigation. While walking, one is mindful of fully present with the movements of the body. Simultaneously, one knows clearly the reason for walking and intended destination, and the factors related to the walking. Moreover, clear comprehension understands the object at the action as it is, without coding it with preferences and aversions. There is a matter of linguistics here when need to be addressed. Some people misconstrue the common definition of sati as recollection and the definition of samapajana as self-awareness, leading to misguided practice. They establish mindfulness as the sense of self, and then have the impressions that they are the agents of various actions, thinking I am doing this, I am doing that. As the results, they curate or reinforce the concept of self. They become preoccupied with the self-image and develop the rigidity of mind. At the very least, their minds are not truly focused on the activity, and their efforts thus do not come to fruition. Some people prone to such misunderstandings should recall to the definition of sati as bearing in mind, sustaining attention of the object or the task at hand, and sustaining attention at the flow of events. Similarly, one should recall the definition of samapajana as clear comprehension of an object of attention, or clear comprehension of one's current activity. In other words, it is not a matter of focusing on the sense of self, I am doing this, rather than focusing on the former of the task. One focuses on the task itself. One's attention is to prevent and focus that eventually there is no opportunity for the sense of self to interfere with the process. The essential feature of mindfulness is an accurate, undistorted perception of things. One sees and understands that the object of awareness is how it manifests, how it affects, how it has each moment. This entails a constant acknowledging, observing, and contemplating and understanding. One does not react to the object, alleviate it, criticize it, or judge it as being good or bad, right or wrong. One does not paste one's emotions, biases, or attachments onto objects, say by being agreeable or disagreeable, satisfactory or unacceptable. One merely discerns how the object, the condition, or the quality actually is, without supplementing one's perceptions and such thoughts as mine, this, us, them, and so forth. Take the example of sati, of feeling, vedana, mindfulness of feeling. In this very moment, one knows, for instance, that the mental discomfort exists. One knows that it has arisen. One knows that the way in which it comes out. One knows how it gradually dissipates. Similarly, one is mindful of mind objects, dhamma, brahmana. If worry or anxiety arises, one observes such emotion and contemplates how they have come about and how they unfold. If anger arises, the very awareness of anger leads to the disposition. One then reflects on the past anger, contemplating its advantages, its ill effects, its causes, its ending. Eventually, it can become enjoyable to study, reflect, and investigate on one's own suffering. When it is pure, unadulterated suffering arises and passes away, there is no trace of my suffering or I am suffering, or that suffering is robbed of all of the power to harm the one who contemplates it. Whatever form of virtue or vice exists externally or present in the mind, one face up to it without any evasion or avoidance. One pays close attention to it from the moment of its arising until it reaches its natural end. It is similar to watching actors perform a play or being a bystander at some event. It is an attitude comparable to that of the doctor performing the autopsy or a scientist analyzing a subject of research, rather than that of a judge settling a case between a plaintiff and a defendant. It is an objective rather than a subjective approach. The constant application of mindfulness and clear comprehension implies living in the present moment. One is aware of each moment of what is arising, what is happening, what one is doing. Attention does not slip. One does not attach to or linger over past events. One does not drift off into the future in search of things that do not yet exist. If some unresolved matter for the past or some future obligation should be considered, mindfulness lays hold of the relevant details and wisdom faculty reflects on them in a purposeful way, so that these matters become the present object of awareness. One does not get caught up in aimless thought, now logistic reminiscence, or fantasies of the futures by dwelling in the present moment. One is not enslaved, seduced, or driven by craving. One's lives or lives wisely, freed from various forms of suffering, such as grief, regret, worry, depression. This way of life leads to an awareness accompanied by spaciousness, clarity, and ease. Fruits of mindfulness practice. Purity. When mindfulness is focused on the chosen object and when clear comprehension understands that the thing is truly light, when the stream of cognition and thought is purified, for there will be no room for mental defilements to arise. When one discerns phenomena simply as they are, without coloring the experience by emotions or reacting to the person's prejudice and preferences, there is no clinging. This is a way to eliminate existing mental taints, the asavas, and to prevent newly propounded asavas from arising. Liberation. When the mind is purified and described above is also liberated, it is not shaken or disturbed by sense impressions because they are used as food for contemplation in a purely objective way. When these things are not misinterpreted or subjective mental asavas, they have no power over people. One's behavior is free from the controlling influence of unconscious drives and motivation. This is what is referred to the passage. One abides independently, not clinging to anything in the world. Wisdom. When the mind is thus purified and liberated, wisdom functions most effectively because the mind is not coated over or detached by emotion, prejudices, and biases. One then sees things as they actually are, according to the truth. Freedom from suffering. When the state of vigilance and true understanding of things is sustained, prejudicial responses, either in a negative or a positive sense, which do not accord with the pure reason discernment, cannot arise. There is no feeling of covetousness, abhijja, or resentment, domanassa. There is liberation from all forms of anxiety. This is called freedom from dukkha, suffering, which is marked by unbound clarity, ease, peace, and contentment. Indeed, these four fruits of practice are interrelated, or they are aspects of the same thing for the perspective of the teachings of dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada, 12 in all, to be specific. And the three characteristics, Titlakkhana. One can conclude the following at first. Most people are ignorant or not aware of the fact that the so-called self they cling to is ultimately non-existent. People exist merely as a continuum of a myriad interrelated, interdependent, physical and mental phenomena which continually arise, transform, and disperse. When one is unaware of this truth, one repeatedly clings to emotions, thoughts, desires, habits, opinions, beliefs, perceptions, and so forth. One identifies with these things. Although the resultant sense of self undergoes a constant transformation, one thinks, I was that, now I am this. I felt that way, now I feel this way, and so forth. To engage in such self-identification is to be deceived by such things as thoughts and feelings, which are merely subsidiary mental factors, Namma Dhamma, active in the particular moment. This deception is the source of miccha-titi, wrong thinking. As a consequence, one's thoughts, feelings, actions are motivated and driven by the existencies of whatever is being clung to, or the self at the moment. When one practices in line with the Satipatthana, the fourth foundation of mindfulness, one sees each material mental component within a specific process of arising and ceasing according to its own nature. By analyzing, distinguishing each factor of the moment-to-moment continuum, one is not deceived into grasping onto things and identifying with them as the self. These things thus lose their power of coercion. It is the insight attains to optimum profundity and clarity. One realizes liberation, the mind is established in a new mode of being, which is pure, spacious, free from mental biases and attachment. Even one personality is altered. This is the state of perfect mental health. It is comparable to the body, which is in perfect health. When it's the absence of disease, all these organs function smoothly and normally. Indeed, the practice of the fourth foundation of mindfulness is a method of cleansing the mind of mental illness, of completely eliminating those things that restrict, obstruct, and impede the mind. A person is then prepared to face and deal with all things in the world resolutely with joy. Piti. The matter can be summarized by the following teachings by Gautama Buddha. Monks, there are two kinds of illness, physical illness and mental illness. There are to be seen beings who can assert to or without illness of the body for an entire year. There are to be seen beings who can assert to without illness for a body for 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. But there are beings who cannot assert without illness to the mind for even an instant, are difficult to find in the world, with the exception of those who are free from asavas, taints. Venerable Sariputra says, householder, your faculties are bright, your facial complexion and pure, radiant. Did you get to hear the Dhamma talk today in the presence of the Blessed One? Nakula Pitra replies, why not, Venerable Sir? Just now I have anointed by the Blessed One with the ambrosia of the Dhamma talk. Venerable Sariputra, in what manner did the Blessed One anoint you with this ambrosia of Dhamma talk? Nakula Pitra replies, here, Venerable Sir, I approached the Blessed One paid homage, sat to one side, and said, I am old, venerable sir. Aged, buried with years, advanced in life, afflicted in body, often ill. I rarely get to see the Blessed One and the bhikkhus who are the cause for delight. Let the Blessed One extort me, venerable sir, in him, and instruct me, since the way to lead to my welfare and happiness for a long time. Gautama Buddha replied to me, so it is, householder, that it is so. The body is afflicted like an egg which is covered by a shell. If anyone carrying around this body were to claim to be without illness, even for a moment, what would this be other than foolishness? Therefore, householder, you should train yourself thus, even though I am afflicted in body, by mind, will be unafflicted. This is the ambrosia of the Dhamma talk. Venerable sir, the Blessed One anointed me. Finally, momentary awareness is essential for insight meditations. People's most ordinary, mundane activities that are going to constantly in their daily lives and the cognition of sense impressions through their eyes, ears, nose, tongues, body, and mind. These are the sense doors, ayatana. Cognition is always accompanied by feeling, either pleasure or pain, or the neutral feeling. In the response to feeling, the mind reacts. If the object is pleasant, the mind arises desire and delight. If the object is unpleasant, the mind arises annoyance and aversion. There is a liking of something one wishes to experience more, to repeat, to the enjoyment, to obtain and possess the object. When there is dislike of something, one wishes to escape from it, to rid oneself from it and destroy it. The process is continual all the time, both on the subtle levels, which tend to remain unobserved, and on occasion with an intensity which is plainly recognizable, which inflicts clearly discernible and lasting effects on the mind. These powerful, unsettling experiences tend to generate long, involved mental proliferations, and they do not resolve, they intrude into the whole range of one's speech and actions. People's lives, their roles in society's interaction with other people issues primarily from insistent contact, sense impressions, which is present in every moment of human existence. Heedlessly abandoning the mind in the process of delighting and pleasing and comfort and resisting pain and discomfort impedes the development of wisdom. One will be prevented from discerning the true nature of things. A lack of restraint in this matter creates the following obstacles. The mind falls under the sway of liking and disliking and it gets stuck in the points of reaction. One's vision is obscured and one sees things from a biased perspective, not according to how they truly are. The mind falls into the past or drifts into the future when one experiences a sense impressions, either delight or aversion arises. The mind gets stuck at the point of the feature of the object and is considered agreeable or disagreeable. Then one makes a mental image of these agreeable or disagreeable features, nourishes it, proliferates over it, dwellings on a particular agreeable or disagreeable aspect of something, and clinging to concepts or images of it. It's equivalent to slipping into the past, the ensuing mental proliferations over these things, entailing drifting off into the future. A person's understanding of the object, the mind created images based on likes and dislikes, or the embellished ideas about it is the fact, true understanding of the object as it truly really is in the present moment. The mind is subject to proliferating thinking. One interprets meanings of what is sense and experience in the light of one's personal history or ingrained habits, according to one's cherished views, values, and opinions. The mind is at the mercy of these proliferation. It is unable to see things objectively and purely as they are. The mind adds embellished mental images of new experiences to one's pre-existing mental biases, habits, thus compounding one's habitual patterns of reactions. The negative characteristic of mind mentioned above do not pertain only to the coarse and shallow matters of one's daily life, general affairs. The Buddhist teaching emphasizes their manifestation at the subtle and profound level of mental continuum. It is through their presence of ordinary unawakened beings are led to see things as stable, substantially real, to perceive inherent beauty or ugliness in them, to attach to conventional truth, and to overlook the all-encompassing law of causality, cause and effect. Peoples accumulate habits and conditioned tendencies of misperceiving existence almost from the day they are born and go 20 or 30 years, 40, 50, or even longer than that without ever training themselves to break the cycle of wrong thinking. Dealing with rectifying this situation is not easy. Before one had time to steady oneself to check the process, the mind has already switched into habitual response. The remedy in this case is not a simple matter of cutting off the cycle of reactivity or abrogating a conditioned process, but also necessitates curbing the habitual tendencies and dispositions of the mind that flow strongly along fixed channels. Mindfulness is the essential factor here in clearing the way for marshaling other spiritual factors. The practice of the fourth foundation of mindfulness has the following objective. Though mindfully keeping pace with experiences, seeing things in their bare actuality, one breaks the circuit of deluded thought, destroy unwholesome mental dynamics, modified old conditioning, and cultivates new dispositions in the mind. A mind possessing such a moment awareness is endowed with characteristic which is complete of antitheses of those shown by a mind caught up in the flow of unwholesome conditioning. Attachment and aversion have no opportunity to arise in the mind because their presence is dependent on the mind ceasing on lingering over a particular point or aspect of an object and thus being caught up in the past. Attachment and aversion exists when there is a falling away from the present moment, a consequence of a free, unentangled mind which observes things as they arise moment to moment, that it does not slip into the past or drift off into the future. The mind is not subject to mental proliferation based on past conditioning which lead to a biased, distorted, or colored experience of phenomenon. The mind is prepared to see things as they truly are. The mind does not compound or intensify bad habits. When one pays attention to phenomenon, they arise in each moment. One perceives certain character traits in one's self which are unwelcome or unacknowledged. With mindfulness, one can face up to these qualities as they are, without seeking to avoid them or without any self-deception. One thus be able to cleanse such impurities from the mind and to solve personal difficulties. The mind endowed with constant mindfulness is unconstricted and untarnished. It is pure, radiant, spacious, joyous, and free. All things exist and proceed according to their own nature. Figuratively speaking, the truth is revealing itself at all times, yet people tend to shut themselves off from it. Alternatively, they see things in a distortive manner or deceive themselves as the nature of truth altogether. The cause of this concealment, distortion, and deception is an immersion in the conditioned stream of heedlessness, abandoning the pleasure and discomfort detailed above. The factor for distortion and delusion are strong in themselves, and these are compulsive, misleading power of habit. And the chance to really have the truth is almost non-existent because personal habits and dispositions have accumulated steadily over an extremely long period of time. The practice to remedy them and to create a new mode of relating to the world is also likely to require a long time. Whenever mindfulness is constant and proficient, when one does not evade the truth, one does not distort the things one sees and escapes the power of old conditioning. One is prepared to see things as they are and to understand the truth at this point. If other spiritual factors, especially wisdom, are well developed, they will join forces with mindfulness, relying on it to operate in the most effective way, giving rise to knowledge and aversion, nana dasana, which is the goal of insight meditation, vipassana, to gain mastery in wisdom and other spiritual factors. However, it depends on gradual training and the basic study and reason analysis, yo niso manasikara, therefore are supportive for the realization of the truth. Then we have the foundation of mindfulness, nourish the enlightenment factors. Mindfulness is not the same thing as vipassana, insight. Indeed, it is wisdom, or the application of wisdom is equivalent to insight. Wisdom, however, operates in a reliable, fully proficient way when supported and guided by mindfulness as described. The development of mindfulness, sati, is thus of great importance for vipassana meditation. In other words, sati, mindfulness, is developed simultaneously with wisdom, or the practice of mindfulness is performed in order to gain proficiency in wisdom. In the terminology of spiritual practice, the mention of mindfulness usually including joint factors of clear comprehension, sampajana, which is equivalent to wisdom in the strength of fluency of mindfulness depends on the participation by wisdom. The wisdom that accompanies mindfulness's everyday activities generally referred to clear comprehension, sampajana. At the stage, wisdom is only a supporting factor in practice, cooperating and collaborating with mindfulness. Here, mindfulness is viewed as the practical or proficient factor when it comes to more suitable levels of investigation. However, prominence shifts to wisdom. Mindfulness is regulated to a role of serving wisdom. An example of wisdom functioning on this level is investigation of Dhamma vichaya, contained in the 7 enlightenment factors of enlightenment, sambojana. It seems appropriate here to review the teachings mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, introducing the Majjhima Patipata, the middle way, which describes the 4 foundations of mindfulness, nourishes and supports the 7 factors of enlightenment, bojana, which in turn nourishes and supports true knowledge, vijja, and liberation, vimutti, as confirmed by the passage. Monks, liberation and supreme knowledge have their nutriment. I declare they are not without nutriment. What is the nutriment of liberation and supreme knowledge? The 7 factors of enlightenment should be the answer. The 7 factors of enlightenment too have their nutriment. They are without a nutriment. What is the nutriment of the 7 factors of enlightenment? The 4 foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana, should be the answer. When the 4 foundations of mindfulness are fulfilled, they bring about fulfillment of the 7 factors of enlightenment. When the 7 factors of enlightenment are fulfilled, they bring about the fulfillment of liberation and supreme knowledge. Such is the nutriment and fulfillment of liberation and supreme knowledge. From this passage, it is clear that the 7 factors of enlightenment generate true knowledge and liberation. They enable realization of the path and fruit. The 4 foundations of mindfulness help by nourishing the 7 factors of enlightenment. This passage elucidates the process of insight meditation in the process of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, sati, is consistent, the basic factor, while wisdom under the name of clear comprehension, sampajana, operates in tandem at the same time. By understanding everything that the mindfulness observes or engages with, sati focuses on things in order for clear comprehension, sampajana, to understand them, just as one may grasp an object in one's hand in order to look at closely with one's eyes. The 4 foundations of mindfulness acts as the basis for the 7 factors of enlightenment. Sati focuses on the objects and submits it to wisdom, which here we call investigation of truth, Dhamma vichaya. At this stage of wisdom, it is a prominent factor investigating the object just as one uses one's eyes to thoroughly inspect something. This is the process of wisdom as an enlightenment factor. In any case, whether wisdom is referred to sampajana, clear comprehension, investigation of truth, or any other destination, it leads to the realization of things as they truly are and to the deliverance of the heart. Then it is encompassed in the meaning of the term insight. Mindfulness plays the important role in both tranquility meditation, samatha, and vipassana, insight. An examination of the role of mindfulness of these forms of meditation sheds light on the subject described above. In tranquility meditation, samatha meditation, mindfulness keeps attention focused on a single object, or holds it to the object in awareness in order to achieve one-pointed concentration. The mind then becomes peaceful and still. It is free from distraction and agitation. When the mind has reached thus one-pointed, unwavering, and steady concentration, tranquility meditation, vipassana, or samatha meditation is accomplished. In vipassana, insight meditation, mindfulness similarly holds an object of awareness in direct attention and object, but it uses the mind as the platform on which the object is placed for inspection by wisdom. Here one takes hold of an object in order to let wisdom investigate and analyze it, using the firm and stable one's mind's laboratory. The practice of tranquility meditation is like tying a wild young bull to the post with a rope. All it can do is circle around the post to which it is bound until eventually, when its stubbornness has abated, it lies down merely at the foot of the post. Here the mind is compared to the wild bull, the meditation object to the post, and mindfulness to the rope. The practice of insight meditation is like fixing a specimen onto a flat surface to allow subsequent explanation to proceed smoothly with precision. Here, the means used to pin down the specimen is compared to mindfulness, the specimen to the meditation object, the surface to the concentrative mind, and the examination to wisdom. So far, the primary principles of these two forms of meditation have been discussed. In the context, there are a few additional observations and distinctions to make. The objective to tranquility meditation is to make the mind calm. In this context, when the mind directs attention to an object, it fastens one's with the sole aim of producing a firm, unswerving concentration of the object, preventing even the slightest deviation of awareness until the mind dwells unwaveringly on mental image, the meditation object. Tranquility meditation thus involves fixing attention on an object and merely a perception created in the mind by the meditator. In insight meditation, on the other hand, the aim is towards knowledge and understanding of the way things are. Here, mindfulness focuses only on truly existent phenomena in order for wisdom to fully and clearly comprehend the nature of their existence. It focuses on things from the moment of their arising through their gradual decline and eventually disintegration, enabling wisdom to gain a thorough understanding of them. Insight meditation depends on an awareness of every kind of sense impression which impinges on the consciousness, so that wisdom could comprehend one each in its actuality. Thus, the objects of focus is not fixed to one. It ensures an accurate and authentic comprehension. One must be mindful of the changing nature of phenomena at every moment to prevent one's attention from lingering onto an object or aspect of an object. In tranquility meditation, mindfulness focuses on an object that is either stationary or moves within a repetitive and fixed pattern. In insight meditation, mindfulness focuses on an object in whatever state of the moment or change, and it exists without restriction. In tranquility meditation, one selects a certain defined object that is considered conducive for calm and concentration. In insight meditation, one focuses on an object without exception,
Whatever manifests in the mind and leads it into investigation, whatever permits a glimpse of the truth is valid. It is the context of insight meditation. These objects may be summarized as Nama Dhamma, the physical objects, Rupa Dhamma, or body, feelings, mind, and mind objects as the four foundations of mindfulness. Another critical factor for spiritual practice of examination, of which helps to clarify unique qualities distinguishing insight meditation from tranquility meditation, is yoniso manasikara, analytical analysis. Analytical reflection gives rise to wisdom, is thus essential to insight meditation. In tranquility meditation, although analytical reflections may be supportive in many circumstances, is less significant in some cases, it need not be applied at all, or else ordinary contemplation, manasikara, is sufficient. In this context, mindfulness is used to direct attention to an object until the mind becomes one-pointed. Here, if one goes smoothly and results are duly experienced, there is no need to make use of analytical reflection. In some situations, however, when the mind does not sustain an interest in the meditation object, when attention wavers and becomes distracted or else with those meditation themes, loving kindness, which requires a certain measure of reflective thought, one may need a skillful means to guide the mind. In such case, one needs to apply wise, systematic reflection to manage the thought process, to lead the mind to correct direction. An example is knowing how to reflect, so to reduce anger and replace it with loving kindness. In any case, tranquility meditation, the kind of wise reflection, may be required in the limited use of rousing unwholesome qualities. It's not necessary to apply the kind of wise reflection used for promoting realization of truth. In insight meditation, on the other hand, the application of analytical reflection is a singularly important step on the path of wisdom, and thus is an essential factor of an analytical analysis and reflection paves the way for wisdom and conduct further development. Its functions and characteristics are so similar to wisdom that these two Pali language terms, yoniso manasikara and panya, are often interchangeably used, which often causes students of Buddhism to have difficulty in distinguishing between them. Analytical reflections access the links between sati and panya, mindfulness and wisdom. It is the vanguard of wisdom. It facilitates the form of thinking that promotes the effective functioning of wisdom. In other words, analytical reflections, yoniso manasikara, provides wisdom with the mode of operation. It is the method of applying wisdom in the most effective way. The reason why some people are confused by these terms is that in general parlance, yoniso manasikara refers both to the method of contemplation, which comprises the very factor of yoniso manasikara, and its subsequent application of wisdom in line with these methods. This ambiguity may also occur when discussing the practical expression of wisdom. For instance, when using the term investigation of truth, there is a tactic understanding that in the context of wisdom faculty, investigation relying on one of the methods provided of analytical reflection. In general, the meaning of the term yoniso manasikara refers to both reflection and wisdom, reflection accompanied by wisdom. As the sequence of events, this process unfolds in this way. When mindfulness lays objects down in full view of mind, analytical reflection holds the object in attention and turns over to that wisdom, can investigate it. Wisdom attends to the objects according to the manner and direction determined by analytical reflection. If analytical reflection lays the foundation and sets the directions correctly, then wisdom bears fruit. Mindfulness presents at every stage of this process. It does not disappear or slip away. Whenever analytical reflection is functioning, mindfulness is present. These two factors mutually supportive in insight meditation. A comparison may be made to a person in a rowboat or on a fast-rowing, choppy river. Collecting flowers or greens along the shore. First, the person ties up the boat or anchors it in such a way that it will remain stationary at the spot where the plant grows. Then with one hand he grasps hold of the stems, gathering them together and exposing them as conveniently as possible for harvesting. With the other hand, using the tool he has prepared for the job, he cuts them off. Here, sati, mindfulness, is compared to a rope or an anchor which stabilizes the boat, enabling a person to remain within reach of the plants. The boat or the person in the boat held steady at a given spot is compared to the mind. The hand which grasps the plant stems and holds them in a convenient way is the analytical reflection. In the other hand, using the sharp tool to cut off the stem is the wisdom. That's the end of chapter 18.3. Buddha Dhamma.